All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Marco, and this video is supposed to act as sort of like a guideline walkthrough video of Module C of the survey, which is titled Relational Values. And as the title already suggests, in this module, we want to learn about certain values that the respondents might hold. And you can think of this module as being split into two main parts. The first part is the so-called valuation scenario. This is where you will be reading out a lot of information to the respondents, and I will provide you some more detailed information in a couple of seconds on that part, and then afterwards you will be faced with more standard types of questions where we want to learn more about, first of all, the motivations behind the decisions taken by the respondents in the valuation scenario. And also, there are a couple of scale questions that you probably already also are familiar with. So scale questions meaning those types of questions where you have the scales ranging from 1 to 5, strongly disagree to strongly agree, etc. So the whole module starts off with this type of warning message in big red letters. For the following, show the screen to the participant and explain on the screen. Turn the screen away from participant when the corresponding message is displayed. What this really means is that you should still be positioned facing the respondent. So it should still be like a situation of face-to-face dialogue with the respondent. But it is very crucial for this part of the survey that the respondent is also able to see the screen of your mobile device, so the tablet. So sort of like you could lean a little bit towards the respondent, but it's important that he sees the text, and especially also the pictures. So make sure that depending on the lighting conditions in the of the interview, that you also adjust the screen brightness to an adequate degree. So when you're outside, you should pop it up a little bit, and when you're inside, you can also tune it down a little bit. But you should always ensure and make sure that all the pictures are clearly visible. So as you might already know, there are two versions of this part of the survey. The changes for you are really minor only, but it is very important that you're aware of this fact so that you're not surprised by this. So there are basically two versions. I would just call them version A and version B. And version B is really only version A with a couple of extensions. So version B is basically the same information, the same text, but with a couple of more pictures added and a couple of more sentences added in between. But you shouldn't really worry about it. It is just important that for each and every respondent, you just read the information that is displayed on the text and always give them enough time to take a look at the pictures and potentially be able to ask questions and things like that. So I know that once you're familiar with the survey, you might be inclined for certain parts of the survey to just present the information off by heart because you've did it. Yeah, you've done it already like a couple of times. But especially for this part of the survey, it is important that you don't do this. So always check what's on the screen, read the information on the screen as accurately as possible. So just read it off and then show the pictures. So for this part, the first part of the relational values, module C, it is important that you maintain this mode. So for each and every respondent, read the information from the screen one by one, word by word. So it starts off with introductory text. In the next part of the survey, I will present to you some information on the current issue. I would kindly ask you to follow closely. Feel free to interrupt at any time if you have questions or problems understanding. So this is also meant to inform the respondent that this part of the survey has some sort of extra importance. I mean, it's not more or less important than any other information you collect in the survey, but it is just meant that now there's probably a couple of minutes where they just have to listen to you closely instead of this question response pattern that you will have throughout the majority of the survey. So now they should just put their attention on you, and you basically giving them the information, reading the information out to them, and displaying the pictures that are accompanying the information. So the respondent is supposed to know that exactly. I think I am in version A now, so I have a couple fewer pictures. And as I said earlier, version B is a little bit different, has a little bit more pictures, a couple of more pictures. But yeah, it's all relatively self-explanatory. So yeah, on this picture you can see an example picture of a low-lying island within the Reef Islands Atoll. At this point, as I said, the respondent is supposed to be able to see this picture quite clearly. Doesn't work perfectly here right now, but I guess you know what I mean here. So every time in the text, of course, once you refer to the photo, the respondent is supposed to see it as well. As you might have heard, scientists agree that global warming causes an increase in global sea levels. This was again confirmed by an international panel of scientists in 2021. Low-lying atoll islands everywhere are threatened by rising sea levels. In the Solomon Islands, these are, for example, the Reef Islands, Ontong Java, and Sikayana. On the next page, this example photo shows a flooded low-lying atoll. Again, at this point, the respondent should be able to see the photo clearly and lit in an appropriate manner. Such instances of flooding due to sea level rise are now happening more frequently. The continuous intrusion of salt water causes an increase in soil erosion and affects atoll island groundwater to become gradually more salty, threatening communities' freshwater security on the island. Already today, this complicates daily life on the atoll islands. On the next page, we'll have a graphic. This graphic shows how saltwater overwash caused by rising sea levels affects an atoll island's freshwater lens. So I think the graphic should be relatively self-explanatory. So what you see here is two situations. So you can basically, version A can be regarded as before and version B after. So for example, version A is maybe 10 or 20 years ago, maybe even today for many islands. But in the future, 20, 30, 40 years from now, potentially rising sea levels can cause this constant overwash, and this will increase the salinization of the freshwater lens below the atoll island surface, which you can see on picture B. Right on picture A, the freshwater lens underneath the atoll island is unaffected by the salt water, but the more overwash is created by the rising sea levels, the more the groundwater becomes salty. So the freshwater lens really is the groundwater of the island, and over time it gets more salty and therefore not fit for human consumption anymore. This is really what is displayed here. On the next page, while this problem will ultimately drive more and more people to migrate from the affected islands, the Solomon Islands government and cooperation with international organizations, such as the United Nations, have recently implemented programs to help communities living in low-lying coastal areas to adjust to these problems. One example for such a program is the Solomon Islands Water Sector Adaptation Project, in short, SIFSAP. If there are any questions relating to this project, you are just supposed to know that this project is real. You might have even heard of it. It concluded 2019, so about 2 years ago. That's when the project ended. So this is not a made-up project or anything like that. So this really happened in some of the Solomon Island communities. Just as a sort of background information. So all the information that is displayed on the next 2 or 3 pages is real. So that really happened. As you can see on this example photo, again, mention the photo in the text. respondents should be able to see it. Programs like CivSub support communities in building and maintaining water tanks and reservoirs, promoting household and rainwater harvesting, as well as constructing flood-proof infrastructure. They also help communities in learning to use the available water resources more sustainably by reducing waste, which means wasted water in this case. In a nutshell, projects like this enable communities to remain on their home islands for the foreseeable future. CivSub ended in 2019 and helped communities in 12 provinces of the Solomon Islands to become more resilient against groundwater salinization caused by rising sea levels. The total project cost at completion amount to approximately 60 million Solomon Island dollars. Apart from extensive professional training, assessment work, and the installation of community water committees, the project installed more than 200 water tanks, restored more than 50 groundwater wells, and installed 6 solar-powered desalination systems. In total, about 12,000 people were supported by the program. So, yeah, this is already quite extensive information on what the project really did. I doubt that there will be many respondents that have additional questions following up to this. But yeah, as I said, so that all of this really happened. Also, the numbers are real. The 60 million Solomon Island dollars and the 12,000 people that were supported by the program. All of this is actual information that can be retrieved from the CivSub web pages online, for example. And it is important to point out that even though on the page before, where you can see only the picture of the water tank installation, there was also more included in the project. So it also helped in facilitating or in building up committees of within the communities, and also educational programs and things like that. So it was not only the provision of infrastructure, but also community building to make these communities more resilient and more knowledgeable about how to adapt to the rising threat of climate change and rising sea levels and things like that. Now the crucial part starts. So at the latest point now, the respondent is supposed to be really paying close attention, because this is now where really the evaluation scenario starts. So up until now, this was just contextual information. Now we're getting into the meat of the evaluation scenario. Now imagine the Solomon Islands government considers implementing a follow-up program to CivSub specifically aimed at communities on the Solomon Islands, Coral Atoll Islands. The CivSub project focused mainly on low-lying communities on larger islands. Only one atoll community received support, because helping people on atoll islands is more costly due to their remote locations. So this should hopefully be relatively self-explanatory. So the CivSub project just focused on communities on the bigger islands, make them more resilient just because of the logistical costs associated to the provision of infrastructure, as the atoll islands are just more remote than any coastal communities on the main islands. With the help of this survey, we hope to learn about how people in Honiara would feel about such a program. Imagine that the government would set up an Atoll Islands Protection Fund, and every inhabitant of the Solomon Islands would have the opportunity to make a one-time donation in support of this fund. In line with the cost of CivSub, supporting all inhabitants, about 8,000, of the still inhabited Atoll Islands in the Solomon Islands would cost approximately 40 million Solomon Island dollars. In other words, the project could be realized if every single Solomon Islander would contribute 60 Solomon Island dollars. So now obviously this is made up. This is a hypothetical evaluation scenario. That's what it's called, which means that the information you're presenting now is not factual anymore, but this is really made up by the researchers team. And it is sort of like the purpose is to present the respondents like a hypothetical scenario, but they really should imagine that this would be a real opportunity. So a real donation opportunity or a real voting opportunity in an election or something like that. So make sure that they know that it's not real. but at the same time make sure that they remain engaged with the whole thing. Now coming towards the big payment question. In previous interviews, we have learned that some people would donate to the fund while others would not. Both groups stated good reasons for their decision. People who would donate stated that they felt the money would help in making the threatened communities on the atoll islands more resilient against the consequences of sea level rise. People who preferred not to donate stated that they did not believe the community would help the communities, that they did not believe the money would help the communities for sufficiently long time, or that they are not able to afford donating anything to the fund. So this page is really meant to give the respondent a feeling that they are not forced to say they would donate something just by the interview situation. So it is really meant to convey to the respondent that, we don't basically want to push them in a direction where they say they would donate something, as the respondent is already supposed to know. So all this information remains anonymous, and it's not basically becoming public information and retraceable to an individual person and things like that. So we are really not interested in getting information that is exaggerated or sort of like feel good decisions, driven by feel good decisions. So they should know that if they don't want to donate to this kind of thing in a real world scenario, they also shouldn't, right? So it's a valid decision to say no, I don't want to support these kind of projects because I don't believe they're working or anything like that, or they are not working in an intended manner or something like that. And at the same time, you will also counterbalance that by giving them examples why people maybe think that these programs do work and it's worthwhile contributing to them. So, but yeah, just make sure that they don't feel sort of forced to say they would donate something if they really don't want to. Now this next part is very important. Please take a look at this card. Again, at this point, the respondent should be able to see the card well. On it, you will see a range of values that will help you in making your donation decision towards the Atoll Island Protection Fund. Please remember that you do not really have to pay this money. However, we would still kindly ask you to answer taking into account your currently available budget. So on this card, they see a range of values. I think it's about 20 values in total. And you also have some example products that they are probably used to purchasing in markets and things like that, so that there's a bit of contextual information to certain payment amounts. So this is a range of values that we deem could be realistic, but they also will have the possibility to donate more than that. In that case, you will exactly click on the next page, and then you will see the central question to this whole valuation scenario part of the module, which is how much of your own money would you be willing to donate to the Atoll Islands Protection Fund today? So it is really important that they should take this question for real. Like if they really don't have the money or don't feel like they would want to donate something, then they should also express that by donating nothing or a very low amount, something like that. So it's really they are really supposed to imagine themselves being in a real situation. That's a crucial thing here. So I think the information given on the cards should already convey this message, but of course it is also important for you as an interviewer to basically keep them involved in the setting. Then you can choose from the range of values that the respondent saw on the payment card before. As I said, if they say we would even donate more to that, just click on the last number, which is more than 200. Because in that case, there will be an additional question that will be prompted, and then you can say, for example, 250. This question will, of course, not appear if they choose a value that is represented on the cards. Then, depending on whether they said they would donate something or they would not, so zero or something other than zero. Yeah, for example, if they said they would donate 50, then there will be a question where you should, yeah, in a few words, could you explain your reasons for donating to the Atoll Islands Protection Fund? And if they say zero, then the question will read in a few words, could you explain your reasons for not donating to the Atoll Islands Protection Fund or something like that? And this is a question where you are supposed to enter the information freely. So just click on the line here, and then you will be able to enter the information on the in the keyboard. You are not supposed to enter the information word by word, but just yeah, basically catch the main message of the information that the respondent is giving. So, for example, if he just says, "Okay, I don't even have money to provide for my own livelihood or for my own living costs," in that case, you can just enter it that way. So, like, no money or can't afford, something like that. So, as I said, don't try to type it down word by word, but maybe just let him talk for a couple of seconds and then write down the main message. Or more than, if it's more than one reason, you can also type it down, like separate it by points or something like that. So exactly. Now on the next part, yeah, I think we're almost done. You see a pie chart. So on this chart, you see how the Solomon Islands government allocated its development budget by sector in the year 2018. So these are the most recent figures that you can access online. So if they ask for any more recent figures, you say, okay, they're just not publicized yet or something like that. Please take a look. The total development budget in that year was about 4 billion Solomon Island dollars. As you can see, the environmental and climate change disaster management is relatively low when compared to other sectors. So it's only 1%, which would equal 40 million Solomon Island dollars in this case. And yeah, it is important that they are able to take a look at this pie chart. You should also be able to explain this pie chart to them. So what do the shares mean in comparison to the total $4 billion of spending in one calendar year? And then the question that we're interested in is, by how many percent would you want to increase the development spending on environmental and climate change disaster management? Please keep in mind that this increase would lead to losses on other ends. The question text also already gives you the hint that it must be between 0 and 100. So it's just important for you to know that when you say 0 or when you type in 0, that would mean the yeah, just no increase. So yeah, by how many percent would you want to increase the development spending, etc.? So if they say it should just remain the same at 1%, then it's a 0. We're not asking for any deductions or something like that. It's just if they say 20%, maybe you could ask them again, do you want it to increase by 20, or do you want it to increase to 20 or something like that? Just that you give the appropriate percentage figure. Exactly. Above, I told you about sea level rise threatening atoll islands. Please tell me, taking into account the information just given, what do you think are the most pressing issues for people living on islands threatened to be uninhabitable? This is again information that you can type in freely, and just stick to the same mode that I just discussed a couple of minutes ago. You don't have to write it down word by word, but try to get the main message in a sentence or two. So now we are at the last part of module C. Please tell me in how far you agree with the following statements, ranging from 1 to 5, where 1 stands for strongly disagree and 5 for strongly agree. There are landscapes that say something about who we are as a people. I have strong feelings about nature, including plants, animals, the land, etc. These views are part of who I am and how I live my life. I often think of some wild places whose fate I care about and strive to protect, even though I may never see them myself. Humans have a responsibility to account for our own impacts to the environment because they can harm other people. And humans have the right to use nature as we any way we want. And finally, natural resource extraction is necessary for countries to develop. Yeah, you're probably already familiar with those scale types of questions, but yeah, just make sure that the respondent knows that there are a total of 5 different values that they are able to choose. So they are also able to choose the in-between values and not just go for the extreme. So if you feel that he's in favor of a statement, or he or she is in favor of a statement, but not as convinced, you might go for a 4 or 2 instead of going for one or 5. And if the respondent says, I have no idea, I can't really make up my mind on the statement, or I don't even understand it, just go for 3. So that's the appropriate way of going about these scale questions. And then, you have sort of like a ranking task. I will now read to you 4 reasons for why people value the environment. Then you read the statements A to D. And now please rank them according to how important they are to you personally. First item should represent the one that is most important to you, while the fourth one should represent the one that is least important to you. And then below that, you have these drop-down menus. They look like this. And then once you type on one of the drop-down menus, you basically are able to choose between the 4 statements. And they rank from 1 to 4. So the first one you enter should be the one most important, and going down the list to 4. The program does not allow for multiple items to be chosen. So if you accidentally go for D for the most important and also for the second most important, so both D, that won't work. So in that case, the program will prompt an error message. So you have to have 4 different statements for the 4 different fields. So that way the software itself controls a little bit for any typing error. So you can't really make a mistake in that case. But yeah, just have them read the statements out to them, the 4 statements that you see on top of the page, and also allow the respondents to have a look at them. And then you just basically help them in a way to organize their scale, sort of, or like their ranking. So sorry. So once you have 4 different things selected, you can go to the next page. This is the last page of module C. So now we have a couple of more longer statements. I think they're not super important, but they are important, but not super complicated. Sorry. On a scale from 1 to 5, 1 means strongly disagree and 5 strongly agree. So this is all already like just the way it was before. And then it's about resettlement programs. I believe a resettlement program, even if no land is available close to the sea, would be a better solution than the activities to be carried out by the Atoll Island Protection Fund. So no land is available close to the sea would mean no island available close to the sea on the main islands. So imagine a resettlement program where people are to be resettled from the Atoll Islands to one of the main islands. But there's just no space really available by the sea for the communities, the resettled communities to live in. So they would really be taken away from their traditional livelihood, living by the sea. The second one, I believe a resettlement program in which an island community receives land that enables them to carry out fishing activities would be a better solution than the activities to be carried out by the Atoll Island Protection Fund. The same as before. So, but now you basically find a way of integrating the traditional fishing lifestyle of the atoll communities into their new livelihoods after a resettlement program. Third statement, I believe a resettlement program in which island communities play a leading role in the planning of the resettlement measure would be a better solution than the activities to be carried out by the Atoll Island Protection Fund. So now this is a little bit different than the two ones before. Here it's just about that the atoll communities have an active say in basically setting up the resettlement program. So they can make their own demands, they can make their own suggestions, and are just involved in the whole planning and organization process of the resettlement. So their new life sort of will be designed in accordance with their communal needs and their traditional lifestyles, probably. Yeah. And then the fourth one is different. Although it might be cheaper to resettle affected communities, we should do everything possible to enable communities to remain on their home islands. So this is not resettlement anymore, but this is just basically in support of what the Atoll Island Protection Fund would do, right? So now we're probably in a situation where we have to pay a lot of money and a lot of infrastructure program to the affected communities to enable them to stay on their lands longer, on the Atoll Islands longer. So this is of course quite costly, and it's not really clear what the long-term perspective in that situation would be. But yeah, this answer should really express the respondents' perception of yeah, if they feel that it's very crucial and that the communities remain on their traditional lands or traditional islands instead of resettling them just because it might be cheaper. All right, and that concludes the module C. Maybe, I don't know, to wrap it up, the main takeaway message, I think, is just to remain as neutral as possible, right? So even though this is a complex and also emotionally loaded topic to many people, I think if you just present the information as it says on the cards, you should be good. Yeah, read the information slowly and make sure that the pictures are always, like, the respondents are always able to see the pictures, and also give them time to make up their mind and potentially ask a couple of questions if they maybe had troubles understanding something. But really all the information that is crucial for them and should basically be sufficient for them to form a solid opinion should be given on the cards. You can always use the option to go back, which could come in handy at this part of the survey as well. So on the bottom left of the tablet, you always have the opportunity to click on going back. So if there's maybe some information that the respondent has missed in this whole valuation scenario, just go back and you can read it out to them again or something like that, or show them the pictures again. So yeah, I hope this helps you in your preparation and training efforts, and yeah, good luck, and yeah, hopefully a lot of fun doing the survey work. Yeah, thanks for your time, and talk to you someday.